all good? Can you hear us? Okay, cool, great. So, welcome to the little foil talk that we're going to do. Thanks for tuning in. And been tons of conditions here. We've been trying all the foils, obviously, and we have for quite a while now. So we have a lot of good feelings on them and all that. But introduce Kane to Wilde, our foil designer, tester extraordinaire, genius, I would say. So I'm just going to hand it off to Kane, and he can talk a little bit about each model. And then you guys have questions, we'll answer them up.
Yeah.
Again, thanks for being here.
Hey guys, this is the foil we've been developed. We've been riding and loving since we got them, pretty much. We kind of have three ranges of front wings, three sizes of masts, and two fuselages. And the general idea of the foils we make is to create something that is fairly easy to use, is simple to use, and has a good range of progression for a lot of riders. So we'll start off with maybe our more basic or easier front wing of the line would be Instinct. These are...
I'll take it out for you.
Yeah. They're a more, you would say, standard foil compared to the other stuff we make. They're just super user-friendly. They're super stiff. They have really good pitch stability and a very gentle takeoff. It's probably what I would recommend as somebody's first foil. Like once you've taken lessons and you are starting to get on foil and maybe go crosswind and stay upwind and maybe not necessarily make progress upwind, but you're comfortably able to stay on foil. You could move to something like an Instinct 1450, and you'd have a good progression towards other sizes, say in the Instinct or Nomad or Atlas range, as far as if you want to learn to jive, learn to tack, and then start to wave ride or jump. The Instinct, especially in the larger size, is a really good starting point for somebody.
So a good intermediate entry level sort of zone.
Yeah.
Not beginner, but intermediate, that next step, some glide, some speed, some stability, some ease of takeoff. So that's kind of what the Instinct is about.
Yeah.
And the Instinct pairs with all the different back wings as well.
Yeah.
You can pair it with the Atlas or the Nomad if you want a little swoop.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do, is have those two back wing ranges. We mix the back wings between Atlas, Nomad, and Instinct, and that's fun. Mm-hmm. And if you guys have questions about that later, we can get into that a little more.
Yeah, mixing the back wings makes a huge difference.
It's huge.
It's
super fun.
Depending on the conditions, if you want a little bit better glide or a little bit better turning out of any foil setup, you just swap from a Nomad to an Atlas, or the other way, rear wing, and it changes the whole foil.
And Kane was really, sorry, you can go to this next, but Kane was really known for back wings for a long, long time. I mean, front wing designs too, but he's had a back wing business in the US or actually around the world, but he's selling a lot in the US or maybe around the world. And so he has a lot of knowledge about back wings and what they do, and I think that really started, how people got to know him and his designs, and then he's worked for some other companies in the past, but I think the back wing business, that's just a little background on Kane.
Yeah.
So
the back wing business was a good place to understand how foils work and a lot of different designs of foils, because you're making custom back wings for everything. And so you try all these different foils, you make the rear wings, you tune in all of these different setups to your best ability, and you get this huge range of things to try. I
think for me, what's so impressive about Kane is how many different foils he tries, and he has access to all the different foils, through other people having them, other racers and all, and he's built this database of knowledge about how the foils work and where they perform well, and where he would like to see them better, whatever it is. And he's got these graphs, and it's kind of nuts. I look at it and it goes right past me, but he understands it, and it's pretty cool because that's all going into what we want to do. And so when we looked at making these lines, I mean, he brought it here, and we looked at making these 2 lines. It was about trying to hit some target points and speeds and ease of lift and stall speeds and all that. So he's had this base of knowledge that he's been gathering for 8 years, 6 years, 10 years?
10 years.
10 years. You know, as a Grom, he started doing it and just making wings. And so I think that that's what's enabled us to bring these foils to market and kind of hit the mark in some really cool spots that I feel are really important for us, and that maybe other brands aren't hitting as easily. You know, we're hitting spots that are important for us, for what we do here, for winging, for kind of all of it, what's important to us. Anyway, on the more background.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, we just want to make stuff that's really fun for us to ride and really fun for our friends and people at the beach and everyone around us to ride. I just want people foiling to have a good time and not have to, you know, struggle too much with their gear.
Yeah, totally.
So that's my motivation. Anyways, let's move on to the Nomad. Do we have a Nomad?
We do. Oh, it's on the set here.
Oh, perfect.
There we go.
All right, so this is the Nomad 700. It's the smallest Nomad we make. The idea behind the Nomad is to make something that just has a huge range in kind of what I'd call like a modern mid aspect ratio shape, which is around, what is this, 9 or 10. The Nomad and the Atlas use a very, very unique airfoil or foil section with a huge amount of camber in the rear of the foil. And this combined with a fairly symmetrical leading edge gives you a huge range, or like an insanely low takeoff and stall speed. And it still retains a pretty good top end, and especially quite a good top speed if you want to push it. I've hit 30 plus 32 knots on the Nomad 700, and yeah, it's a good time. Just need some wind and gotta be a bit brave. We really like to use the Nomad in the smaller sizes for surfing or for like small wave tow foiling, or for like winging in choppy conditions. When you want a little bit more of a stable, locked-in, comfortable ride, and you want maximum control. And so this really helps us like push our own limits when the conditions aren't necessarily perfect.
And I think the point about the camber and all that's, you know, what really, like, I've just been learning to downwind and, you know, the last couple years. And when I jumped on these foils, that low end really, really helped me get up and learn and stay with the swell. And I think people really appreciate that. There is it does vibrate a little different. I mean, you guys have tried it, so you kind of understand. So sometimes people feel like the foil's a little vibrating or has a hum to it. But that's kind of just part of the way it feels. And when you're coming from other foils, they can feel a little slipperier. But these foils go as fast, and you're maintaining your speed as much in general. And so it's just something that people have to get used to. It's just a different feel. And, you know, switching between foils, you can really feel it. And the low end for me, I don't know another foil out there that has a low end like that. And it has still the mid and into the high. You know, the high, you have to keep it, you have to work at it a little bit, but you can get there.
Anyways, Nomad is small sizes. I really love powered up conditions, surf foiling. I think Otis uses them in the waves winging.
Yeah, he does.
His 700 is...
I like the 830 to just prone foil in small waves. That's amazing.
The big ones guys have been using for para-winging.
Yeah.
Learning to para-wing, or like, they're really fun if you have like small wave bump conditions, kind of onshore-y stuff, light onshore-y, like what we had in Thailand.
Yeah, that was
that
cool.
Like a Nomad 980 or larger would be really, really, really fun there.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So here, next.
I'll grab a Nomad rear wing just to complement it.
Yeah, good call.
The Nomad rear wing, kind of in similar fashion to the front wings, is more of a mid-aspect shape. They're there's going to be less deflection. They're going to be stiffer than the Atlas. They're going to feel like they have a bit more support under you, and they'll turn a lot better than the Atlas. And so these are really nice to swap on anything for windier, choppier, bumpier conditions, or if you want the most aggressive turning.
Yeah, I like to put the Nomad on a 790 Atlas, the 155, and I get a little more swoop in my turn. And it's the same. I'll put the Atlas 145 on the Nomad 830 and get a little more drive in my turn. So it's fun to play with that, and they work both well. It just depends on what I'm doing. If I'm going to Kihei for a downwind run and I want to swoop more, I'll put the Nomad on the Atlas, or the opposite, depending. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Atlas. People have been really excited about these, I think.
Yeah.
These have had the most excitement or popularity out of
Yeah,
anything.
I think in Europe what we're finding is that people are really liking the Nomad because there's a lot of winging going on, and the versatility in the Nomad and the forgivingness. With the Atlas, I mean, he can talk about it, but it's always important to let your customers know to pare down, to size down. Sorry.
Yeah.
Because they are powerful. And they ride bigger than they say on the thing. So
yeah, for example, a good comparison, like these really high camber foil sections, probably you could size down about 20%, 15-20% compared to something more standard. A good example is compared to the Instinct. For example, our Instinct, what is it, the 720, and Atlas 570. Have around the same takeoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Atlas 570 is a lot faster.
Yeah, on the top end. So if you want the speed on this,
you can size down.
You size down.
Yeah.
And especially for winging, because you're getting up with the wing, obviously, so you're more efficient. And then the opposite is true if you're learning to say downwind on a paddling. You can size up when you're learning to just get yourself off the water and get that glide. Yeah. And then you'll figure out what size you need. But I think we really hit it. I think Kane really hit the mark on these foils as an entry, is getting into the market. We're super stoked.
Yeah, one of the goals for especially the Atlas and Nomad, because we're coming out with a whole new system, a whole new range, we don't have a lot of options of front wings and rear wings to start. And so I wanted to create a set of foils that has a huge range and will cover, say, everything I want to do. Everything I want to do when I travel, or when I'm riding here, or winter, summer, if I'm downwinding, if I'm surfing, if I'm want to go, ride fairly fast in flat water. These are just really, really capable all-around foils that have a huge range, and that was probably the main goal.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, we have our mass 70, 77, and 85. And I'm sure you guys have figured out the numbering system for the shims, adding the front wing to the mast and figuring that out, and that's with the tail shim. And the whole tail shim thing is a recommendation. We've been playing a lot with that and going either a little bit more or a little less.
Yeah.
And it still works either way. You can go for a little more speed. You can go for a little bit more lift from the beginning. So
yeah, what I find in general, it seems like there's a little bit of variation in the preferred shim between water conditions, and sometimes rider height as well. The weight doesn't seem to matter as much, but the biggest differences we see are in different water conditions: colder water, salty water. Like the guys in Tarifa, where it's a bit colder than here, are running half a degree to a degree more lift in the tail.
So they go more positive?
Like more front foot pressure.
More front foot pressure.
Yeah,
okay.
So they're going more positive on the shim, and they're all really liking that. And it seems like it's a combination of riding style, their flat water powered up winging, and the water conditions they have over there. And so that's a good thing to know. What's nice about our whole shim system is if you ride one setup and you figure out you like a degree more lift on it, it translates really well to every other combination of parts you're going to put together that say, oh, I like a degree more than the recommended, you can put any other combination of front wing, rear wing pieces together, apply that same 1 degree, plus 1 degree, say, and you'll have a fairly similar result as far as what you felt on the first setup. And so that was kind of my whole goal with this whole shim system, is consistency and repeatability, and having like a solid base to work from for people. A lot of the stuff I've tried before, especially with designing my own rear wings, the biggest improvement I made to most foils was just getting the tail angle right, or getting the right combination of front wing and rear wing, so that you had the right tuning, I guess would be the word.
Yeah. It was amazing how much difference when we were just in Thailand for a trip testing some stuff. Kane was just going in and out, and he was able to, right away feel the differences going from one shim to the next and getting more speed or more stability or whatever he's looking for. So yeah, it's all really well thought out and tested so that we get the best result, the best end result.
And even at like the top level downwind racing competition, tuning is still probably the biggest factor in speed and in your performance. Getting the tuning right, the angle of the deck of the board, the angle of the rear wing, the fuselage length. Yeah, it's probably number one for me.
It's key.
You can, yeah, makes a big difference. And so I wanted to bring what I know and what I do as someone who knows I can feel if it's right or not, but someone who's getting into foiling or doesn't know a whole lot about it, just wants to go out there and have fun, I felt like they deserve to have the same level of the same dialed gear that I like.
You don't know how many times I've called Kane, like, what shim do I put? What do I do? Where's it going? And I'm still trying to understand it, but he always comes through. And then as we've been getting better and I've been getting better, I start understanding, which direction's better for me. But at least that base is there, which is key. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So and it's just important that the customer understands that they can play with it a little bit.
Yeah.
And get a feeling that they can resonate with.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll open it up to questions, keep the discussion going. How do you want to do that, Casey? Do you have access, or if you're just blurting it out, or
In the chat here? Yeah, nothing in the chat, but we can also open it up to people.
Oop, I see some stuff coming. What's that, Casey? Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Talked a bit about it.
Yeah, we have the box that comes. We've got all the different screws that come with it, all the different negative, positive shims. Mm-hmm. They're all marked on it. I mean, I'm assuming you guys have already seen that. 3 bolts on the mast just for super solidity, safeness. I mean, it's pretty cool. Like I was saying, the way Kane works, and I'm sure it's across the board people do this, but I was just really impressed with, the size of the bolt you use and how much shear force it takes to break it. And that's all, it's all really well thought out. So we have minimal problems. Yeah. I mean, we're dealing with forces that are just nuts.
Yeah.
And so we tried to design something that's kind of future-proof. We're not planning on changing the connections for as long as possible, because that just is a pain in the butt for the customer. Trying to make it as solid as possible, so we have the minimal problems. And so far, I haven't seen anything that just stands out or anything. A few little things here and there, but I think everybody's kind of dealing with that as well. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, good call.
Yeah, there's 2 numbers you add up. There's one number on the the mast here, and another number on the front wing. So say this is a 790. You have a -1 degree, or -1, and a 0. This is the 77 mast. And so what I would start with is by trying my -1 shim in the tail wing and seeing how that feels. If I feel like I want a little bit more front foot pressure, then I can go to plus half. So I'll go to a minus half degree shim, or if I want even more, a 0 degree shim.
So you're going to a positive to get more front foot.
That would give me more front foot. That seems like what most wingers, especially in Europe, prefer.
Why? Because they're having to push down on the board to like get it going, or I don't. I've tried to understand that.
Yeah, I think having a little bit extra lift from the tail gives you a lot of safety, especially when it's windy, or if you ride a bigger board, or if it's gusty. Sometimes the wind can blow the nose down, and if you're kind of if you're at a pretty neutral shim, then it can suddenly go from neutral or slightly front-footed to back-footed, where if you have extra front foot pressure, it'll go from front-footed to a little less front-footed and then back. And so it's a little bit more forgiving in that sense.
And here we've been actually going the opposite way. We've been going with more negative to just have more top-end speed.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
I think a lot of people who downwind and pump foil and surf foil have been going the other way. They've been like minus half is a pretty popular change to make, especially downwind and surf foil. And what that'll do is increase the pump efficiency of the foil, increase the glide of the foil, and it'll also loosen up the foil and roll. And that's been popular here, but we're also in warmer waters.
So yeah, that's kind of the general idea for the shimming system.
Just for customer, if customers have questions, sometimes really tall people might want more front foot pressure, and really short people might want less front foot pressure. This is because their center of gravity is a different distance from the center of drag of the foil, and so the lever between the drag and the center of gravity is different. It'll change the tuning a little bit.
All right.
Let's see, Jason was asking, what do y'all like in the Nomad for prone or wake surfing?
830.
The 830 for me is the prone size. It's a good size that you can still turn. It's still relatively easy to pump around. I'm not so good, so I need all the help I can get.
Yeah.
And that gives me the stability I need. But
I would say 830 would be my go-to for prone and wake. I had a bit of time wake foiling it in the gorge, and it felt really good. It was the right speed for the wake for the boat that we were using. I think an alternate, if somebody's a little bit more on the beginner intermediate side, would be one of the Instincts. Maybe I think the 920 would be really good for wake foiling.
Very cool, smooth.
Yeah, they're smooth. That'll be super super steady and stable. And you can ride a couple wakes back.
Plus, it probably rolls a little bit easier than, say, the Atlas, where the Atlas is more stable, side to side. Yeah. So that's always nice when you have that little bit of help that it rolls instead of like straightening out and you fall off. I know I need all the help I can get with the roll. When I'm trying to paddle up and all, it's nice to have the foil roll a little bit to just kind of compensate for my not being that great as a paddler.
Yeah, people with smaller boats or with like small wakes might like the Atlas better. They might like I think the 960 Atlas could be pretty fun if you have a very small wake.
Yeah, because it's efficient.
You have a little bit more glide, yeah.
That makes sense. Okay.
Do you think you will make a carbon titanium fuse at all?
All I can say is we have a lot of projects in the works, and stay tuned.
Yeah. I mean, they do. We have titanium fuses coming for him to race on, so yes, we have designs. When it comes to market, we'll see.
Yeah. So. I did design some of the connections of the foil, especially the mass connection, to be open to work with carbon, and so the opportunity is there. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
And then, how would you describe comparing Nomads and Atlases of similar sizes? For example, Nomad 700 to the Atlas 680, or Nomad 980 to the
960.
Atlas 960, and the bigger ones as well for people to.
I think what a lot of people find is of similar size, the Atlas is going to have more acceleration more glide. And a lot of people find it feels a little bit faster, but it's not going to be as steady or stable. And so just kind of depends on the conditions you're riding in, and where you want to be on the balance between control and efficiency.
I think that's the thing is, again, the Nomad's going to roll a little bit. So someone who's maybe not quite as good like myself, I appreciate that roll. I mean, I can tap into an Atlas, no problem, but sometimes that forgivingness really helps. And I think that the Atlas is going to definitely feel more powerful. It's going to pop up a little quicker. So somebody who's a little bit more experienced can appreciate and take advantage of that. Someone who's not quite as experienced might enjoy the Nomad's forgivingness with still having some of that low end. But then when you start hitting that low end on a size-to-size wing, the Atlas is, I would say, I don't know, 20, 15, 10 something % better on that. Just stall speed, and all you have to do is pop up, and then it just takes off again.
Another factor between Atlas and Nomad of similar sizes would be rider weight. Heavier riders, I would recommend the Nomads in general, just because of the stiffness of the wings. Just being lower aspect, they're going to be stiffer. They're going to be more steady, and we have some echo here. And heavier riders generally, like if you control for speed range, say a heavier rider on a bigger foil or a lighter rider on a smaller foil, the heavier rider is actually going to have a higher lift to drag ratio, or it'll work like a higher aspect ratio. So heavier riders can ride a bit lower aspect ratio without much penalty.
Okay.
Any plans for a longer fuse for windsurf foiling?
We
have one already that we were playing with Alex in Tarifa.
Yeah.
So we have something. I don't know if it's available yet, but yeah, it's there. It's designed.
Yeah.
So it's just about demand.
We're not doing a lot of wind. It takes a little bit longer just because I probably should learn how to windsurf foil. I need to learn. But Alex over there is really good. His feedback is amazing. And so it's just distance. But yeah, I want to make something good for windsurf foiling, especially for like the free ride guys.
Yeah, I mean, again, we came into the market trying to come with a couple, 2, 3 wings that work well that we can get going. And then now we can start developing other projects, because it takes time and energy, as you guys know. And it's not an easy market. There's a lot of brands. And I think we've done really well for just coming in, obviously with Kane's energy and knowledge. And, I think we've really come to the market with something pretty cool and a bit different.
Yeah.
Why do the bigger front wings need bigger tails, and what fuse length do you recommend for most people?
The bigger front wings need larger tails because there's both more drag at high speeds, and there's more downward pitching force from the wing. As you accelerate, that any foil, like say you take the rear wing off, unless you have something that's purposefully designed as a monofoil, they're always going to want to pull the board down to the water. This is because the drag of the wing at high speed, the lever, the distance to the center of gravity, and where the center of gravity is. And so as you accelerate, say you have no rear wing, this is going to want to drag back and pull the nose down. A bigger front wing is more drag at high speed, is going to want to pull that nose down harder. And so you're going to need a bigger rear wing to feel the same sense of stability.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you learn something new every day.
Okay. And then also, we've got being in light winds, I think it is important to explain the camber built in as an early takeoff feature, such as where I'm in San Diego, 230 pounds plus. I'm now riding in conditions I was never able to. This can translate in conditions when it gets light or struggle to get up. Was this part of the intention in the design, or just a positive attribute you discovered through R&D?
It was a bit of, I would say it's kind of all the above. It was really intentional, especially from a downwind perspective, because the idea and development behind these wings and this airfoil came from downwind foiling. And that's in downwind foiling, you want to get up. You have really, really limited power, right? The power you have through the paddle is a fraction of what you have in a wing, similar to light winds. And you want to be able to get up on the smallest foil possible and reach as high of a speed with that foil as possible. And it results in that development results in a shape that has those characteristics. It's really good for light wind winging, and still, can handle on the top end.
I think one of the other things. Let's see. Ryan's talking about with the explosion of para-winging, how the wings are fitting into them.
That's Ryan Arzy.
Yeah.
What's up, Ryan?
Driving it virtually. But yeah, talk a little bit about, for para-winging, I guess, the all-roundness of the different foils.
Yeah, we've had a good, we've been adopted, these foils, by a lot of the para-wingers because, like I just said, with a para-wing compared to a wing, your power at low speed is even more limited.
I can attest to that yesterday.
It's close to a paddle in the way of you're really struggling for power.
Yeah.
And these foils with the low end they have excel in that.
Along with
discipline.
the Super K.
Along with the Super K, which similar goals.
So just that low end, low stall speed, low lift-off speed, the stability, all of it, so that the minute you start moving forward on your board, the Atlas especially starts stabilizing and starts lifting. A lot of times it's almost like so quick that it kind of throws you off, at least for me, So, but yeah, they excel for that, and I think that's the benefit of this whole range is just that low end stability, yet it still performs mid and even into the high. I think it's better that we started off in this zone to get people really comfortable, and then now, Kane's winning races on other stuff that he's doing. So, so it's amazing. I think we have a really good base, and now we can kind of go from there.
A comment on future development. I'm really excited about it because developing these foils, I was focusing on designing the system, designing the wings, these really good all around set of wings, and making something that will cover a lot of bases with minimal, with the few products that we could get out. And now now that these are out, it's been really fun to kind of kick things into second gear and get a little bit more focused on certain disciplines and on certain parts, and really go really deep and really optimize things.
And that was really cool. Like I was telling you guys earlier about this graph, that this just stuck out to me, one thing, this graph that Kane has, and he basically has every foil on the market graphed in their performance and where they excel, where they're less fast or whatever it is, not bad or good. It's just how they perform. And so he's got these graph points, and he looks at that, and then, with some new stuff that he's been working on, he's looked at these graphs and kind of targeted where he wants the new wing to perform, whether it's low end or top speed or all. And what's cool is he did these new designs, and when we've tested them, he kind of hit the mark. So he's able to use that as a base to design new wings and hit the mark. And that just kind of sets a bar, not a bar, but a guideline to know that, putting a new foil, putting this and that will get you this. And so he can really focus on getting what one is important for him, and then what two I think is going to be important for the market, because you see a lot of these new race wings that are out there, and amazing, they're going super fast. And I've tried some stuff that we've done, and it's hard, I struggle. He's amazing. So I think what we want to try and do is again, like how we hit it on these foils, is if you're going to bring a race foil to market, you got to make it so that it's accessible, and that it still wins, but it's accessible to people, because I don't think I'll ever be able to use a full-on race foil. Sure, I can do it, but I can't get the best out of that wing because I'm not capable of sitting in the range as long as you need to at the top end to make it really work performance. So if we can bring that element of speed and ease of use into something that we can tap into, then I'm going to have fun and I'm going to be going fast and I'm going to be timing with my friends because we do it every day. Who's going faster and all that. That's what's fun.
Yeah, I'm here to learn as much as I am here to make foils for people. I really just want to learn about foiling. I want to learn what people like, what works well for people. I want to learn how, I'm really into I want to be able to predict everything. What am I feeling on the water? How does that translate to what I'm seeing in simulation? How can I predict that? And I do a lot of. I almost never ride the same setup, the same foil every day. I always change something, and then I go home and I look at how that compares to the simulation, and I go look at how this compares to what other people are saying, what other people are feeling, what other competing foils and designs are doing and feeling, and I use all of this to validate the simulation data, and really be able to optimize a foil.
All right. Any other questions there, buddy?
Are there any plans for smaller tail wings? We've got a lot of questions.
Okay, good.
Okay. Yes, we're working on some smaller.
We have all new
wings.
designs. They will be coming. It's just a matter of when. I mean, he's racing on.
I'm racing on. We've made a bunch of prototypes.
Yeah. So we do a lot of. What's cool is you can do a lot of prototyping with back wings because they are smaller, and we found a way to do it. Mm-hmm. And so we've been going through a lot of prototyping, and I think we're pretty close to our final designs. Yeah. Then those we can then proceed to the factory, make molds and all that. So yes, there's designs for new back wings. There's a new fuselage coming, a little bit different design. There's a new masts coming. So there's a lot of stuff, a higher end carbon mast, just to get into it a little bit. You'd have to talk to Matteo and the team in Europe about timing, but they're in the works. We have a new front wings coming, so it's pretty cool. And Kane is racing on them currently. So
the front wings I'm racing on right now were designed for production. So when those come,
I mean we're in the process of making molds. We're in the process. So it's happening.
Yeah.
So we'll see how he does in the races. So far he's done pretty good.
How you recommend to match front wing to conditions like prone foiling as far as it feels like the range? It feels like the range of each wing is pretty wide.
Yeah.
So.
In general, know your conditions, I guess.
I didn't quite understand the question.
How do you match to conditions?
For sizing a range for prone foiling?
Well, I know for me, I know that this 790 is my day-to-day foil. Yeah. I can pretty much get this going here in Maui in most conditions. But then, there's days where it gets light and I'll go up to the 960. So I usually have my base foil that I use that I know I can use in a pretty broad range of conditions. And then from there, I go out a little bit to the side and say, hey, I want to go wave ride. So I'm going to take a Nomad 830 because I know that that's my go-to size. I don't know if that helps.
I think what's nice with having a pretty wide range is that even if you're a little off on the size, it's not going to kill you. You're still going to have fun.
Yeah, I was using the 790 the other day, and it was blowing 40 knots, and I was going about as fast as I could handle. And I could have been on something smaller, but where we left, it was hard to get up, so I wanted something that I know I'm going to get up, and I know that when it gets a little windier and I'm going faster, that I'll be able to keep it down.
But yeah, the main thing as far as sizing is and choosing a foil is where you want to be between the ranges as far as control and efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see, how do you advise people to position the mast in the tracks relative to their stance or using the foils for the first time compared to other brands? So people are transitioning over what they might be used to when they're with the cambers and everything else. Is it better to ride them further back than they'd expect at first, or where do you generally?
I think a lot of people, especially our feedback from Europe, is that people are liking these a little bit farther forward than some other foils. with any new foil, I would recommend taking it out for your first time without straps, just because it's more forgiving as far as foot position. Yeah, with any new foil, there's going to be some adjustment. You're not going to know where the perfect spot is on the first try, especially with straps. And so I would recommend taking it out without straps, seeing where your feet are, and then going from there. That would be the safest.
Yeah, I mean, another way to just do it also, and I'm sure you guys already know this, but we do the balance test, and that's kind of nice with any foil. Anytime I make a new board, I do this just to check. And I obviously have references to kind of the length of the board and where I put the foil, and in general, it stays pretty consistent. Yeah. But the balance test, Kane can show you basically. Yeah. You're just setting your foil where you think it should go midway, let's say.
This is more relevant for strapless riders, and for say you're setting it up for the first time on a strapless board. You're going to take this foil out. You don't know where to put it. What I do with this foil, and with any foil really, is I call it the balance test. You basically want to hold the foil with a couple fingers from the center of lift of the front wing, which on our foil is maybe 2/3 back from the leading edge. And you want to lift it straight up. And you want to adjust the foil in the box so that the board is level. Or just a little slightly nose up is what people tend to prefer.
That's a good place to start. After that, then it's a personal thing.
Yeah.
And it is really personal. But I know that on our boards, I have a setting on each of these boards, and it's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
And then when I started using a more racy foil, it ended up going way further, and I did the balance test, and so yeah, it's a good way to start.
Yeah. For any foil.
Yeah, for any foil, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Bubbles asking for people getting into para winging. What would you recommend for wing size? So if they're paddling.
The wing itself?
No,
the front wing.
Like, would you keep the same size, go up or down a little bit?
Condition dependent.
Yeah,
no?
People like large stuff, I think. What's been really popular? 960?
The 960.
980?
I mean, for us here, the 790 for me is my go-to. You know, I know that it's not going to take much energy. I should have had a 960 yesterday. And a bigger wing, but hey.
Yeah, I think Elliot has been using the 960 and the 1130 a lot.
Yeah.
And then someone's asking again about, and what we were talking about already, planning for the race foil down the line. But
yeah. There's a new model coming out. We'll keep you posted.
I love racing.
Can you talk a little bit about the mast fuse interface? Curious how stiff and strong it is compared to other designs, why we ended up here with it.
Yeah. I get a lot of questions about why did we go for, just like a bolted foot connection versus something more like a male-female. There's a couple reasons. One, tolerances. So what I find with most tapered, or just in general, slotted style connections like a Tuttle, is they wear out really fast and they tend to settle. So what's really common is, especially with the tapered ones, is you put it together really tight, you go out, it settles a little bit, and you come in and your front bolt is loose. What you also don't realize, when your front bolt's loose, the whole connection is loose, and so it's just not as stiff when you put it together for the first time.
Well, I think too, problems you're using a rubber mount.
Yeah, it gets stuck. It gets stuck on there.
It's a pain in the ass.
The straight tapered ones, I think Sabfoil and Axis don't use any taper in the connection, and that fixes the issue of being stiff immediately after assembly. But over time, they wear and they get loose, and you have to go back and repot them. And the other thing with the slotted connections is you lose a lot of cross-sectional area in the fuselage. And so if you want to make a really skinny fuselage, or you want to make a carbon fuselage, it's a lot harder because you get these weird stress concentrations around the box. And I just didn't feel it was as future-proof as this style of foot connection.
It's so nice you just pull off the bolts,
yeah,
and it comes right off.
It comes right off. You don't have to like bang it off. It doesn't get stuck. It's just on and off. It always feels the same.
Yeah.
Another thing, I do recognize that it's not as strong at its max strength as a box connection, but we've done a lot of testing on it. I did a bit of study. We have a mast that has load cells and an electronic cassette in it, and can actually measure the load, the bending load, the torsional load on the parts. And so with that, I've gone out, I've tried to break stuff. We look at the peak loads of everything. And the good thing with bolted connections is they're pretty easy to design. You know the strength of your bolt, you know the width of your connection, you know how it all works. And so you can design everything so that the bolts are within their limits. On this mast connection, I went a little. I gave it some extra margin of error just for future proofing.
I think this might have already been talked about, but we're going to read it anyways. Planning on building a surf-specific, race-specific, other discipline-specific foil line, but I think that's kind of been answered.
Yeah.
Nomad for surf and Atlas more for a little speed and
Yeah.
all around, and then we've got the race ones coming. So.
And they're just, so you know, the race ones are going to be pretty, the range of use for those is going to be pretty broad.
Yeah.
And it'll be good for winging as well. So it's not something we're designing that's just like super race specific. It is, but he's winning against guys who are using 5/16s that are a mile wide.
The foil that I'm riding in the races right now is actually a foil I designed for the average, like you're 90% of the people downwinding on Maui, and so he can use it.
Yeah.
He can use it. It's easy to ride. Gets up easy and pumps easy.
And then, of course, the inevitable occasional time that we get some whistling.
Yeah.
Is it coming from, I want to know, where is it coming from, maybe how to isolate that, and any tips on how to eliminate it?
Yep. Whistling, it happens. It's not nice. It can be pretty loud.
We work with the factories day in, day out to get the finishing to where we're hoping it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's still going to happen here and there.
Yeah, we're working on it really hard. The high camber wings do have a little bit more of a tendency to whistle. It's a pretty simple fix. The main factors are the thickness of the trailing edge and the shape at a very small scale of the trailing edge. We can link. We can help anyone who has whistling problems. There's some good video guides, and we have a lot of experience.
Basic tips right now you might be able to.
Yeah, in general, you would want to start. I would start with something like a 320 grit. Do a 45-degree pass, or clean up the trailing edge at roughly 45 degrees to create a square profile. And then I would start rounding it towards the camber side, towards the high pressure side of the foil. And so what you're looking to create is what's called a Donaldson trailing edge. This has been really well studied. It's the most effective shape to reduce noise. And it works. It just, you might have to give it a couple tries to get some foils need a little bit more treatment than others.
And I think it's important, it's important to note like the way the camber comes up. So it's not actually like you're holding this part level, it's like you're holding this part level to get that 45. That was something that Kane I didn't understand, so.
Yeah. Another thing with the whistling, I would do your finishing passes at 600 grit or higher. I found I've had times where I'll do it perfectly at 320 grit and it still makes a little bit of noise, and then I hit it with like 600 or 1000 grit and it's completely silent. So it seems like the finish at the trailing edge definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, and I think we have videos, or we worked on videos, or there's something coming so that people can at least have something to reference.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, we don't want that to happen.
No, we don't want it to happen at all.
You know, if you have a customer that has one that's really bad, I mean, here I've replaced one for somebody, and then I tune it up and it works just fine. So, but happy to replace the wing for somebody and then just tune it up for ourselves to have in demo or whatever around here.
99% of times, it's going to be from the front wing or the rear wing. I don't know if I've seen a case yet of it happening on our mast. It's really rare.
The recommendations for fuse for most people, like the 63.
63.
63.
63.
Sure.
Yeah, and what would they get by going to the 56?
I really like the 56, but it's definitely a lot more reactive of a ride. And I think for advanced riders, I think maybe with a little bit larger tail, it can be fun. It can be really fun, like wake foiling if you're on a very small board as well. But 95% of people, a vast majority of people prefer the 63.
Just easier to use.
Yeah, just easier. It's kind of a good length for most people.
Perfect there, and then we've got, if you could only have 2 tails for all the front foils, which would be your go-tos?
I have one tail, the Nomad 155. That's all I need. It's my favorite tail out of the whole range as far as range, as far as what I can use it on. Yeah.
Just the range.
It's just a good size. It works good on the small foils. It works good on up to maybe the 960. It works really good. So it'll cover 90% of my use.
Oh, Ryan, you're so impatient. We were going to get to that one, but that was the next segue here. I think what we should do is right behind you there as well on the same line, just go over the paddles, because I know they've been as much of a game changer to the whole setup with the boards and foils. So.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is the KT foil blade paddle. This started as an experiment in my backyard. Last year for racing, I was looking for any kind of advantage I could on the paddle up, and so I started laying a huge amount of carbon over some old paddle blades. Made some really crazy, shovel square looking stuff, and went kind of deep into figuring out how the paddle works and what makes it forgiving, what do you need to get up easier downwinding. After a bunch of experimentation and some cool prototypes with these guys, we ended up figuring out that the paddle blade works a lot like a foil. If you're a proper stroke on a paddle has a lot of it's actually more downward push than it is a pull back, and so it's creating that force by flow this way up over the blade towards the shaft. One of the main problems I had with the paddles I made and the paddles I tried is that the first few strokes that you need to catch a bump would suck down a lot of air and would stall the paddle, and they just didn't feel smooth and they didn't feel efficient. And so through a bunch of through some experimentation and some understanding, we put essentially a foil leading edge on the blade. And we reduced the angle of the leading edge here, but we kept a lot of offset from the shaft. So you can see there's quite a bit of curve here. What this does is it allows the blade to enter the water really smoothly and really cleanly, similar to a low angle blade. But because it's far away from the axis of the shaft, the blade remains really stable in the water. And this paddle excels in these first 5 strokes to catch a bump or to catch a wave. The acceleration is really, really good.
You need every bit you can get.
You need everything you can get. We're so power limited.
It's true.
And that was the other thing is I'm putting a ton of effort into we're putting a ton of effort into the boards. We're putting a ton of effort into the foils. We're training, say for downwind racing, you're training hard. You're going out and you're working on your technique. Well, what about the paddle? The paddle is the first interface. It's where the energy gets from your body to the water to get on a bump. And so it's a little bit of change in the paddle can make a huge difference in how easy it is to get on foil.
Does that answer your question there, Ryan?
I mean, that was the difference for me. What's that? Say it again, sorry.
How long do you suggest cutting the paddle?
Yeah. What if you get that? I mean,
I kind of just do it to my head. I do
Yeah.
it. That's me.
it depends if you're. I think people who like to paddle pump, who like to use the paddle, while they're up, might like it a little bit longer. I go anywhere, like just for pure takeoff, I go around head height. But if I'm going to use it significantly, like flat water or super light conditions, I might go a couple fingers
Just
above
so
the
that
head.
when you're up and flying, you're not having to like bend down so much to paddle.
Yeah, I would say more than about a fist overhead is getting a little bit long for most
It's a little
people.
long for that getting up and going. That's where I have the issue. If it's too long.
Yeah, and size.
Yeah, size-wise, I mean, I'm 160, and I like the medium or small. Small, you can kind of like whack, whack, whack kind of quicker. Medium's like you can push a little harder and not as many strokes. So it really depends on how you stroke and what feels comfortable to you.
I'm like 88 kilos, 85, 88 kilos. I'm pretty solid on the medium. That's my favorite. And then we have some heavier guys that like the large.
They like the large, yeah. But large doesn't equate to better performance for somebody.
No.
It's really, the blade itself is really performance, so it's about finding that size that works for you. And I think most people are going to use a medium and can use a medium. And then, if you prefer a quicker stroke, maybe the small.
Totally.
Okay.
Next question.
Anything else?
I think we're pretty good here. Is there anything else anyone would like to ask the? Oh, here we go. Ryan, it's all you. But let's talk a little bit about. Okay, we're saying saying at 6'5", 230, like the medium, and a shorter length, about chin high to not hurt your shoulders. But
Nice.
There's
a
a lot of
range.
subjectivity to it.
I think too, one thing that I didn't bring up about the paddle is like how easy it is on your shoulders. It's like the other paddles I found were a little stiff and just kind of the angle and whatever's going on. This is the easiest I've ever had, like where your shoulders don't get as tired. Not only that, when you're learning or even good, you're using that paddle a lot to keep yourself up from falling. And the way it hits the water and stops you is incredible.
And then, for someone getting into downwinding, would you recommend the Nomad or the Atlas for them to start?
Atlas. I would say a big Atlas, 1130, 1340, big tail, and start in some, smaller, shorter period bumps if you can.
Maybe even a Nomad backtail to give a little bit of
Nomad
a little bit
190.
of roll. Yeah, just because, I've gone through this the last years and I still do. It's just like, when the board takes off one direction and you can't like correct it easily because your technique isn't so good, it's nice to have the foil that'll roll a little bit more so it's a little more forgiving.
Yeah.
And then just a quick little thing on the base plate shims.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
With the boards and the angles, but what they would, putting it forward or back.
Yeah.
That part.
The base plate shim is a way to tune the angle of your board. And so the biggest change is going to be either both the takeoff and ergonomics. If you look at like the kite foilers, the foil racers, and the angle of the deck of their board, they're running 5 degrees, 7 degrees front foot up. What this does is it gives you way, way more control when it's windy, when you're going fast, when you're super powered up. So on these foils, I use a degree of base plate shim, thick side in the front, for powered up winging conditions, toe foiling, anytime I'm going to be at the top end speed of the foil speed range. On the other end, if you're going to be right at the bottom end of your foil speed range, I would recommend using the plate shim thick side in the back. What this will do is it'll make the takeoff happen a little sooner. And I find the pumping is easier and more efficient, especially, say you're doing dock starting or or flat water starts on a sup, I find that the plate shim thick in the rear really makes a big difference.
And it's kind of like it's a personal thing too. I don't think it's something that you tell someone who's getting into it. Well, you can tell them because it does help on when you're trying to get up. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of probably better to start neutral and then, you know, work from there. If they're struggling to get up, then you can say, well, put the 1 degree in the back and that'll help you lift. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be a little more abrupt, but it, you know, it will get them up. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, we're playing with it to go a little faster. So yeah, but starting neutral I think is important and then going from there.
For wingers, it's worth trying thick in the front. It's going to be stable. The carving's going to be really nice. Upwind is going to feel really good. It's a good change for high-speed riding.
That's new to me, so good.
Cool, guys. Are there any last questions here? Someone coming off mute.
Do you change the mask position? Do you see that one, Demetrius? When using the plate shim, do you also change the mask position?
In general, I haven't.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah.
Kind of keep it in the same spot.
Yeah.
It does move the wing a little bit forward or back. So thick in the front, I might move it forward a touch. Thick in the back, I might move it back a touch.
Actually, no, we did move it, didn't we? We did move it like maybe like a quarter of an inch.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Ryan, what happens if I don't use a tail shim?
What happens if you don't use a tail shim?
You don't get a warranty.
Yeah, if you don't use a tail shim, you'll default to a +2. You're going to default to a lot of front foot pressure. Yeah, it's
so if
the reason for that angle built into the fuselage is so that with these, if you put extra lift in the shim, it's not going to raise. You're just dropping the back of the tail into the fuse instead of raising the front out. So you're not creating like a hard edge or a gap at the front of your rear wing that's going to catch water. But yeah, if you don't use a tail shim, you're going to have a lot of front foot pressure at high speed. It's maybe not just going to turn great.
Yeah, it said I thought 0 shim was no shim, but that's actually just 0 degrees. We're literally talking about not putting a shim.
And not putting a shim at all.
Just again.
Yeah. So the 0 degree shim is level with with the base plate, level with the fuselage. That's actually 0 degrees. So if anyone wants to do some experimentation, if someone is really has some extra rear wings and they really want to try stuff, maybe start with the 0 degree shim instead of running no shim at all. But yeah, it's just a connection geometry thing so that we can have a big wide range of angles and not create any gaps on the tail wing.
And yeah, I think windsurfing fuses would definitely come to the U.S. as soon as they, I think, solidify the design. So we're just going to get hands on some. So.
Hey Ryan, are you on the plane? Are you flying in today? Tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. Kane, could you quickly touch on the aluminum mask too?
Yeah. Yeah, sick. I was really excited about the aluminum mask. It's actually one of the products I'm most excited about. Last year, again, downwind race season, I put a ton of effort into mask design, and I got some really, really dialed foil sections that are, really, really stiff. They turn good. And they're really low drag. And I kind of was looking at the mast I was riding, man, I could make a sick aluminum mast out of this. So we made it's 19 millimeter thick aluminum mast. It has, and my goal was to make the best. I compared to the competing aluminum mast that I've measured and seen, it's lighter, it's faster, and it's stiffer. So really stoked on our aluminum mast.
And then the cost obviously will be a better cost. So it's going to be a great entry, intermediate, and I guess even, maybe for bigger guys that are heavier, they could use it. Yeah. For
it's a bit of extra weight.
Yeah.
But
extra weight, but
the cost is worth it.
The cost is worth it. So it'll be a good product to have.
Yeah. And the important thing with a lot of thicker aluminum masts, they have ventilation problems. And so one of the main focuses of this aluminum mass was ventilation resistance, and I think we really did a good job there.
Casey, question about titanium hardware.
Do you find titanium hardware is needed for screws? Any issues with corrosion currently?
All of our screws are 316 stainless steel, and the threads are also stainless steel. So we're not having really any issues with corrosion. Titanium hardware doesn't give really a stiffness advantage, but it has a little bit better fatigue resistance. Has a little bit more friction. I'm considering it, but I don't think it's worth the cost really for what you get out of it. It is nice and light though.
Yeah.
It feels good. It feels good to use.
Cool. Well, I think we're good then. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Feel free to send feedback or questions or anything, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you taking the time to hang out and talk story. We'll do it again. Tell us what you want to hear about next.
Thank you.
Thank you.